Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Finweek Money Matters. This is the show that helps you manage your finances. I'm Demisha Greater. Coming up on the show today, we take a look at Hello Pretty. That's an e-commerce platform for small businesses, and we take a look at the outlook for Sasol. We also have a panel in studio with us, and we'll be discussing the challenges that are currently facing South Africa's youth. But please do note that you can email us and you can send us your comments or any feedback to moneymatters@abn360.com. But first, let's take a look at the trend of the week. Hello Pretty is an online marketplace for designing entrepreneurs and is the brainchild of husband and wife team Scott Hatfield and Sam Marks. Now, having been launched in 2012, Hello Pretty has since grown to support over 1,200 entrepreneur designers. The platform allows local designers to create and manage their own online stores and social media presence from one central place. Joining us from Cape Town today is Lee Geldenhuys. She's the head of strategy and social at Hello Pretty. Lee, thanks for your time. Just tell us exactly, what does Hello Pretty do?
Well, we've created a platform for designers to produce and manage their own online stores. We ourselves don't sell anything, but designers are able to use the platform and able to reach wider audiences from across South Africa and across the globe.
So, Lee, how is this different from any e-commerce platform?
Well, I would say that the main difference is that we're not an online store, we're an online marketplace. So the difference being that you could compare it to a mall as opposed to a shop. We allow other designers to have their stores on the platform. We do not create any products, we do not warehouse products. We just facilitate the sales, manage the payment gateways, etc. Essentially making it easier for designers to reach their communities.
Lee, I understand that there are actually two selling plans. So how does this work? Just explain the two different plans to us.
Well, we have our starter plan, which means that there are no monthly fees whatsoever. However, there is a 20% commission on all sales made. Then we have the standard plan, which is a 90 Rand monthly fee with only 5% on a commission on sales made.
So you do have other e-commerce players like Takealot, you've got Groupon. Are you finding it quite difficult to get other smaller e-commerce players to break into this dynamic industry?
Well, I would say that ultimately the biggest challenge has always been trust. E-commerce has been largely met with suspicion by South Africans, as it's fairly recent here, certainly in terms of the rest of the world. And with companies like Takealot and Groupon being so big and making online shopping so commonplace, they've actually done us a favor because people are becoming more used to the idea. Someone who has bought from Takealot or Groupon is far more likely to go on to buy from us than someone who's never shopped online before.
Lee, thank you so much. Of course, Lee is from Hello Pretty, and she's the head of strategy and social from that particular company, telling us a bit more about that. We're now moving our focus to the punt of the week. We're going to be talking about Sasol, that is the energy and chemicals company, and it's seen its share price recover on the back of the stronger oil price, with the Brent crude now up 50% since the start of this year. It's also known for its technological innovation through continuous research and innovation. The group has invested in a number of projects, including gas operations, and they also plan major expansions into the US to take advantage of the cheap shale gas. To give us more insight into this, we do have our Finweek contributor, Mushima Gama. Mushima, what is your outlook currently for Sasol, seeing that it is so closely linked to the oil price?
Hi, Tamisha. Well, Sasol, alongside with a lot of the metal stocks, actually, they did plummet quite substantially. And to me, such a plummet it then tends to warrant an equal amount of upside, just because of the way it really fell. But in retrospect, I would think at this point, for me, Sasol becomes a very good buy. because you'll be buying it from a lower base. And because the oil price is now starting to pick up, that should be good for Sasol. That is that has at least that component. It is positively correlated to the Brent crude. So I would think at current levels this would be a good time, but specific, not current levels in per se, I would say are above 500 Rand. That would be a good time to go long, where it could then complete a 100% retracement to its all-time high, which is around the 653 levels.
Mushima, would you not at all be concerned around Sasol's expansion plans in the US? Do you think that they may be too heavily invested to the cheap gas possibility that we are seeing in that particular front?
Look, a lot of analysts, or even people who do deal with resources, do feel that Brent crude is at its peak at this point, and we do need to start looking at alternative fuel, just also for carbon reasons, or the green reasons that we all have to comply with in every country. So they have got quite a good strategy, and the US being one of the biggest consumers of oil, partnering with a big a big country like that consumes a lot, that's very good for Sasol. They have currently put that deal on ice, which is pretty good, because the drop in oil price did gnaw in their profits, but now that it's picking up, it looks like they'll probably start opening up those books. But I think they're on a right track, looking at alternative fuels, and this would just give them a very good long-term boost, which I'm pretty positive on Sasol in the short, medium and long term.
Mushima, thanks so much for that. That was our Finweek contributor, Mushima Gama. Up next, we're taking a look at this week's cover story. South Africa has celebrated a tumultuous 21st birthday. It's been marred by xenophobic attacks and student protests over the lack of transformation at universities. The country is also facing major economic challenges, and black South Africans remain marginalized, with economic participation a far cry from reality. I'm joined by a Finweek journalist, Buhle Ndweni, to discuss the lack of economic transformation. Buhle, thanks for your time. This is this week's cover story, very topical. Would you say that South Africa is at a boiling point of tension? The issues around xenophobic attacks, the frustration that we are seeing with the youth. Your point, your take on this?
Yeah. South Africa at a boiling point, definitely yes. The protests are valid. You see UCT, the movement that they have with the Roads Must Fall. The fact that there are black professionals out there, but you get to a university like UCT and you're not seeing the transformation happen there. And then we also, like you mentioned, see the xenophobic attacks. Minority of South African population, but it is talking to something that is relevant to them. They look around, they don't have jobs. In this democracy, it's been 20 years down the line, or 21 years, but unemployment has actually increased instead of decreasing. So it speaks to what the young people out there are concerned about, and they are frustrated. So that's why you're getting them express the frustration out there, as they have been doing.
When you've been covering the story, were there any suggestions on how South Africa can go about fixing this problem?
I think one of the things was that they have to stop looking at the orthodox economic path that they're looking at, look at the comparative advantage that South Africa has to other economies, and maybe introduce labor-intensive ways in which they can create employment for young people. But also, I think on the other end, it was what can business actually do in order to create more jobs for people. So I think it's not just to be left to government, but also to the business fraternity out there in terms of determining what is it that they're doing in order to improve or create more jobs for the youth.
Buhle, thank you so much. Coming up in the next segment, we will be looking at the lack of transformation that is said to be seen in universities, and whether or not this trickles down to what we see in corporate South Africa. Thanks so much to Buhle Ndweni. Of course, she's the Finweek journalist who was covering that story. Stay tuned, because when we come back, we'll have a panel discussion about these very challenges. Mm-hmm. She must, Minka, they said you must project. You're talking about Minka, right?
I must project. I can do
the
that.
red scarf, this pink.
Oh, hello.
It's not you. It's not you, Minka, sorry. Colorblind. Welcome back. You're still watching Finweek Money Matters. Well, statistics by Goldman Sachs report released this year show that despite a large number of black South Africans moving into the middle class over the past 21 years, 85% of blacks remain poor, while 87% of whites are in the middle or upper class. Our recent student protests highlight the impact of the lack of transformation across universities and the private sector. We're going to discuss this, and joining me to do that and to discuss why the youth of South Africa are so frustrated with the lack of economic transformation in the country is the head of media and public affairs at the South African Institute of Race Relations, Minka Statler, lead economist and researcher at Nascent Research Insight, that is Xandi Pai, and Finweek journalist Shandukani Mulaudzi. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. Minka, let me start with you. There are these campaigns that Buhle mentioned earlier, Roads Must Fall. Do you think that having these particular campaigns addresses the bigger issue around transformation?
No, it does not. It does not address the bigger underlying root causes. However, these campaigns are extremely important in starting the conversation. So these campaigns, especially from the student point of view as well, so that's really good to see. It's great to see that the students have seen what they deem as wrong and have started to take action, but it has to go much deeper than that. And we want to see that the debate is not only about, you know, colonial or post or apartheid statues and heritage, but we also want to see that the debate spreads to education, to employment, job creation, and those sorts of things.
Xandi, I would like you to respond to this, but about a few weeks ago, I saw something in the newspaper that had the Rhodes students there, and it said the headline was "Rebel Without a Cause." I'd like you to address what Minka had said, but also, do young South Africans have the right to be frustrated?
Yeah, look, I think the one thing that's quite interesting is that today is the birthday of the Constitution, and amongst the most important things is a point of equality. And one of the students are saying, and I went to a debate recently where they were talking, and they were saying, if we talk about the representation of colonialism, what they're trying to change also is the sense in which, if you go to a lecture, for example, as a student, the way it is, material is presented, the type of stuff that is included in the curriculum does not actually make them feel as if they are part of the system. So it's almost exclusionary, particularly if you think about the kind of education you're going to get to go forward, particularly if you think also about moving the country forward towards. So the way you are taught, the teaching and learning at university is very important if we are going to transform the university. But one of the things that I think is quite important as well is the way we look at each other. And I think that is one of the things that they want to talk about, in which they're saying, look, if I go to a class and I put up my hand at a tartan and we're discussing, say, for example, at a humanities lecture, and I have an idea, does my lecturer look at me in the same manner as they look at my white colleague, or and they're thinking, look, it is not quite the same thing. And so if I'm not looked at the same way, my ideas don't rise to the same level, then the output at the university level is not going to be quite the same. So those are the things that they are trying to address. So they are a little bit beneath that, but I think obviously we still have a lot of work to do, certainly. But so the cause is very much there. It's very much there, and I think people are misunderstanding it by only focusing on the campaign as if it was just about a statue. It isn't. It is just a representation of a much bigger problem.
It's deeper than that. Shandukani?
I think what Xandi just said is very, very important. It is a problem that people are seeing what students are asking for as just a matter about a statue. There are bigger issues. People are fighting because, well, at the end of the day, I can graduate, but I'm not necessarily going to get a job because, well, my friend knows someone who knows someone at a top law firm, for example, but I don't have that same kind of connection, so I'm not going to get into that law firm, even though my marks are amazing. So I think those are the things that people are saying, I'm not seen. People are fighting to be seen, and they're fighting to be seen in the same way as someone else. They also want to be human. And I think those are the things that students are saying, can we just have real change. That's what people want. They want real change. They don't want to see things that are sort of, you know, whitewashing, for example, where things look like they're changing, but they're not really.
Minka, in 2015, I really wouldn't think that we'd still be grappling with these issues, especially when you look at the born frees. This is a generation that is said to be born out of the shackles of our past. Do you think that born frees is a sham?
Well, a report that we brought out last week looked specifically at that age group. So those people would be 24, maybe turning 25 this year and younger then. And unfortunately, yes, we feel that they are not truly free. They don't have economic equality, pardon me. They don't have economic equality. They don't have, I mean, we touched on all of this. They don't have those freedoms that they should be having in 2015, 21 years later. And the high unemployment, we're still seeing, for example, there's good stories. So there's a lot more enrollment in universities, but very few of those students actually end up graduating. Now that could be for a variety of reasons. The main one may be financial as well, or also not being heard, certain opportunities not opening up for them. And so only 49% actually end up passing a 3 or 4 year degree. And then when you look at the school as well, we're still seeing, and we looked at figures in 1994, and it was the same in 1994 as that it is now. During the 12-year school period, about between 400,000 and 600,000 young people disappear. They don't get counted into the ultimate matric pass percentage. Yes. And we want to know, like, of course, some of them have maybe gone to work, some of them are heads of child-headed households, some may have fallen pregnant or so forth, but how can we help those young people to stay in school as well? And the thing is, when we look at the unemployment, if we actually add people that have stopped looking for work, so have given up, are not in educational training, it's 67% for young black males and 75% for young black females, and that's shocking. And that's why we say that the born free term is maybe politically, they have political freedom, so in that sense it's true, but when it comes to getting a step out of poverty, taking a step up in life, it's unfortunately not true.
And certainly, I think, this statistic is particularly shocking, you know, this 85% poverty.
Yes.
But at the same time, we should not be surprised. One of the things that happen in any economy is that in order for it to absorb people, it has to be as diversified as possible.